Hello, book lovers. Welcome back to another book review. Thank you for tuning in. What if the most. Okay, did I just destroy my computer? Okay, maybe I did. Hold on 1 second. Sorry, let's try that again. So, hello, everyone. Thanks for signing in. I think everything's okay. So, what if the most profitable kind of travel wasn't about seeing new cultures or relaxing on beaches, but about visiting places devastated by catastrophe? Imagine paying to see disaster zones, environmental collapse, or war torn cities, because that's exactly what happens in The Disaster Tourist by Yun Ko-eun. This is the reason I almost destroyed my laptop there. I dropped my tablet thing. Anyway, so that's exactly what happens in The Disaster Tourist by Yun Ko-eun. This is a darkly satirical eco-thriller that takes a sharp look at capitalism, climate change, and the ethics of tourism. So let's dive in. So yeah, today we're exploring the Disaster Tourist, sharp, unsettling Korean novel by Yun Ko-eun. Yun Ko-eun. Wow, this is I can't even speak this morning. And translated into English by Lizzie Bueller. So Yun Ko-eun is a highly regarded Korean author known for her unusual, darkly funny and satirical and deeply thought-provoking stories. This novel, the English translation was published in back in 2020, and it received a lot of publicity. It was a very high-profile release, and it garnered a lot of very positive reviews. And it even went on to win a big international crime literature award. And Yun is regarded, like I said, as a talented young novelist here in Korea. She's the author of several stories and short story collections. She's won several of the prominent literary awards, including the Hangyeori Literary Award, the Lee Hyo-sok Literary Award, and the Kim Yong-ik Literary Award. So she's had a very successful career so far. This was her first novel to be published in English, but she also had a short story collection released last year or the year before, called Table for One, also very interesting. And the translator of this of The Disaster Tourist is Lizzie Bueller. And I think she also worked on the short story collection. So The Disaster Tourist has been called everything from provocative eco thriller to a young feminist critique of late capitalism. And the marketing material for this novel at the time said that it engages with the global dialogue around climate activism, dark tourism, and the Me Too movement. So, what's this novel about? What's the initial setup and premise here? So, the novel's protagonist is Yona. Yona is a somewhat jaded, dissatisfied young woman at a crossroads in her life. And she's been working for a travel agency called Jungle that arranges trips to places that have been struck by natural disasters and climate change catastrophes. So think hurricanes, tsunamis, earthquakes, and so on. So Yona has been working at this company for 10 years, and she fears that she has stagnated in her job. And she starts noticing rather ominous signs that she may be about to get sacked. Her problems are compounded when a more senior member of staff starts harassing her in the workplace. So she decides to quit. But as she does so, she is given an opportunity to travel on one of the company's trips instead. And so she is sent off to evaluate one of these so called disaster tours that her company is famous for. And so she's sent to this impoverished desert island of Mui. And when she's there, she discovers a disturbing plan that's being hatched by the desperate locals. So, what is disaster tourism, and how does the novel depict this concept. So at one point in the novel, an employee boasts that they have tour packages for earthquakes, typhoons, volcanoes, avalanches, droughts, floods, fires, wars, massacres, radioactivity, desertification, serial killers, tsunamis, animal abuse, contagious diseases, water pollution, and more. Yona later describes the desire to go on these types of holidays as the following stages: shock, sympathy and compassion, and maybe discomfort, gratefulness for their own lives, a sense of responsibility, and the feeling that they'd learned a lesson, and maybe an inkling of superiority for having survived. So there's a few things going on here. So we have this satirical criticism of the relationship between capitalism and climate change. We also have a criticism of tourism in developing countries. The disasters that have happened in these places become commodities that are marketed and promoted to people in more affluent countries who have become numbed by their consumerist lifestyle, in Yun Ko-eun's telling. The problem in Mui is that their original disaster was 50 years ago, and it's beginning to lose its appeal. No one cares about a sinkhole that happened 50 years ago. But the residents depend on the tourism money to support their economy. So, what can they do? They construct a narrative about another disaster that can be sold to wealthy tourists around the world. But of course, this narrative isn't real, it's a fiction, a product. And so, through this story, the novel critiques how disasters are turned into marketable products consumed by tourists who then go back to their safe and privileged lives. So, how effective is the novel? Does it work as a thriller or a satire? So it kind of works on a little bit of both, but maybe not really fully on either. So it's trying to work on multiple levels. So as far as the satire goes, it's sort of biting and darkly funny and deeply unsettling. And as an eco thriller, it's suspenseful and thought provoking. It is quite effective, so it's quite clever, and it is an engaging and thought provoking book. There's an interesting interview you can read online between the writer and translator. And in that interview, Yun says, I wanted to poke fun at people who think they have nothing to do with catastrophes, who think they're immune. I use imagination and a sense of distance to add humor to otherwise serious topics. One of the things the novel highlights is this idea that many of us live in a bubble. We're safe, we're healthy, or we're relatively safe and healthy until, we have these sort of narratives of safety about our lives, but really, everything is only okay until it isn't. And that really, this veneer of everything being okay is actually very, very thin. And I think, of course, this novel came out around the time of COVID and so on. I think we sort of saw that with this. I don't know. Am I allowed to say the name of that on YouTube? Anyway, you know what I'm talking about. So, and that really, this world that we've built up around us teeters close to disaster more often than we perhaps think or realize. And so the disaster tourist is talking about this idea, has maybe has too many ideas going on. Some don't get developed as much as others, but it was kind of a perfect novel for that period in time. And it highlights that we live in this fragile bubble. And since 2020, we've had several other things happen which kind of draw attention to this as well. The bubbles might be bursting, bubbles might be over. We like to think that we're safe and comfortable and distant from disaster, but perhaps we realize the bubbles are popping or getting thinner all the time. And anyway, so we have seen the pandemic. We've had wildfires in places, like so on, and various other things I don't need to mention. And so this veneer is definitely thinner than we think. So why should we pick up the disaster tourist? So if you're interested in books that tackle contemporary global issues, this is a very worthwhile book to read. It's a sharp, unsettling critique of disaster capitalism. We have a fresh and compelling feminist protagonist. And it's a book that I'm sure will make many readers think about lots of different things. It might not develop all of these things fully, but it is a very relevant novel for our times. So, what do you think? Would you ever go on a disaster tour? Do you think disaster tourism is a strange concept? Let's talk in the comments, and don't forget to like the video, subscribe for more book reviews and deep dives, hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload. And as always, thanks for tuning in. Take care, and I'll see you in the next video.